Okay, so for this question, we have the formula we can use to change degrees Celsius into degrees Fahrenheit is by multiplying the temperature in degrees Celsius by 1.8 and then by adding 32. So we can visualize this with a function machine, and it would look something like this. We start with our input, which would be in degrees Celsius. We're then told we need to take our degrees in Celsius and multiply that by 1.8. So that would be our first step. And then once we've done that, we simply have to add 32, and that will give us our output in degrees Fahrenheit. So that's the function machine we're going to use for this question. So I'm going to copy it down for part B as well. So for part A to this question, we have that the temperature in London is 15 degrees Celsius. We need to work out the temperature in London in Fahrenheit. Well, our function machine is converting Celsius into Fahrenheit. So our input is in Celsius and our output is in Fahrenheit. So we want to convert 15 degrees Celsius. So that's going to be our input. That's what we're going to start with. So because we're starting with the input, we're just going to move from left to right. So we would begin by doing 15 multiplied by 1.8. Well, that would be 27. And then if we do 27 plus 32, that's going to give us an output of 59. So 15 degrees Celsius is the same as 59 degrees Fahrenheit. And that would be our answer to part A. So now looking at part B, we have that the temperature in New York is 77 degrees Fahrenheit. We need to work out the temperature in New York in Celsius. So again, this function machine is turning degrees Celsius into degrees Fahrenheit. But this time we're starting with Fahrenheit. We're starting with the output. So we're here with 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So when we're working backwards towards the input to figure out what that would be in Celsius, we need to do the opposite operations. So because we're working against the function machine this time, instead of doing plus 32, we need to take away 32. And instead of multiplying by 1.8, we need to then divide by 1.8. So now moving from right to left, well, we're starting with an output of 77. We then need to take away 32, and that would give us 45. We then need to do 45 divided by 1.8, and that will give us an input of 25. So 77 degrees Fahrenheit is the same as 25 degrees Celsius. And that would be our answer for part B. And we can check our answer by following the original function machine. If we start with 25 as our input, and we follow the original steps, we multiply by 1.8, and then we add 32, that would indeed give us 77. So we know we've got the correct answer. So again, when working with function machines, if we're going from the input to the output, we simply follow the operations that are stated. But if we need to work backwards from the output to the input, we have to do the opposite operations, working from right to left. Okay, let's take a look at one final example. And then for this final question, we have that the cost of a taxi is £2.20 plus £1.80 per mile. So again, we can represent this question as a function machine, where we have two steps. So the input of our function machine this time is going to be the amount of miles that we cover on our journey, and the output will be the cost for the total trip. So if our input is the amount of miles, and we're charged £1.80 for every mile, we're simply just going to multiply by 1.80. I'm going to keep it to two decimal places here, just to remind myself at the end to go to two decimal places because we're dealing with pounds and pence. So we take the amount of miles, we multiply that by 1.80, but then we had this standing charge of £2.20, which we also need to pay. So for our final step, we're just going to add that on, and then the output will be the final price of the journey. So I'm going to copy this down again to part B of the question as well. So going back to what we said, the input is the amount of miles that we cover, and the output will be the cost of the journey. So for part A to this question, we want to figure out the cost of a 9-mile journey. So we're working from left to right, input to output. So we're just going to follow the operations as we see them. So we're starting with an input of 9. We then want to multiply it by 1.80. Well, that's going to give us 16.2. But again, because I'm dealing with pounds and pence, I'm going to make sure I use 2 decimal places here. So we've got 16.20. And then all we have to do for this final step is simply add on 2.20. And that'll give us an output of 18.40. So this will be our cost. So our 9-mile journey would have cost £18.40. And finally, for part B to this question, we have that another taxi journey costs £43.60. We need to work out the distance of that particular journey. So again, the function machine is exactly the same. We have miles as our input and cost as our output. But this time we've been given the total cost of the journey to be £43.60. So we're working backwards from right to left. So we have to do the opposite operations. So instead of adding 2.20, we're going to be subtracting it. And then instead of multiplying by 1.80, we're going to be dividing by it. So to begin with, if we do 43.60 and we take away 2.20, that's going to give us 41.40. And then we're going to take that number and we're going to divide it by 1.80. And when we do that, we get 23. And that is our distance. So this journey that cost £43.60 would have been 23 miles long. And that's our final answer for this question. So well done if you followed along with those examples. And that's it for this video. If you want to check out any other videos that are relevant to this one, then I'll leave some links for them down in the description, and I'll also put a card in the top corner. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please feel free to leave a like and consider subscribing. If there are any topics at all that you'd like me to go through next, then please just let me know down in the comments, and I'll try to make some videos on those topics as soon as possible. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.